Judge Amy Coney Barrett graduated from Notre Dame Law School. She graduated while being on the law review. Afterwards, she clerked on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals for 2 years, and then on the Supreme Court for Justice Antonin Scalia. She worked at a law firm for a couple of years, perhaps grabbed a cup of coffee there, not long, and then went to become a professor, principally at her alma mater, Notre Dame Law School. She was there until 2017, when President Trump appointed her to the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals, where she has been since.
And I do believe that she has continued to teach courses at Notre Dame. Talk to us a little bit, Keir, about how Judge Barrett has ruled on some past cases and what issues could be at stake if she is, in fact, confirmed as the next Supreme Court justice.
So, Lana, all important issues confronting our country eventually end up in the Supreme Court. A couple of her notable decisions while she was an intermediate appellate level judge on the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals. One involved a police detective who lied on an arrest warrant and was later sued. She permitted that lawsuit to go forward and denied the police officer's qualified immunity claim. I think that decision would likely bolster those who are rule of law types and who are police reform types. She voted in dissent in an opinion, a decision whether to reconsider a panel decision. So a little complicated here. There was a 3-judge panel on the Seventh Circuit that considered and rejected heightened parental consent rules under Roe versus Wade when the entire Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals considered whether to take another look at that decision. She dissented from that on Federalist grounds. So she has, while she's been on the Seventh Circuit, she's already dealt with a number of issues that are current today.
And we expect, if you are just tuning in now, President Trump to join us any moment. We are looking at a live look of the White House Rose Garden. We have seen now the front seats start to fill in and the crowd rising to their feet in expected anticipation of the president and his appointee to the Supreme Court, Judge Amy Coney Barrett. Let's listen in.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I stand before you today to fulfill one of my highest and most important duties under the United States Constitution, the nomination of a Supreme Court justice. This is my third such nomination, after Justice Gorsuch and Justice Kavanaugh, and it is a very proud moment indeed. Over the past week, our nation has mourned the loss of a true American legend. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a legal giant and a pioneer for women. Her extraordinary life and legacy will inspire Americans for generations to come. Now we gather in the Rose Garden to continue our never-ending task of ensuring equal justice and preserving the impartial rule of law. Today, it is my honor to nominate one of our nation's most brilliant and gifted legal minds to the Supreme Court. She is a woman of unparalleled achievement, towering intellect, sterling credentials, and unyielding loyalty to the Constitution, Judge Amy Coney Barrett. We're also joined by Amy's husband, Jesse. Thank you, Jesse, very much. And their 7 beautiful children. Congratulations to you all. Very special day. With us as well are the First Lady. Thank you, First Lady. Along with Vice President Mike Pence and his amazing wife, Karen. Thank you very much, Mike. Judge Barrett is a graduate of Rhodes College and the University of Notre Dame Law School. At Notre Dame, she earned a full academic scholarship, served as the executive editor of the Law Review, graduated first in her class, and received the law school's award for the best record of scholarship and achievement. Upon graduation, she became a clerk for Judge Lawrence Silberman on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia. Amy then received one of the highest honors a young lawyer could have, serving as a clerk on the Supreme Court for Justice Antonin Scalia. A very highly respected law professor at Notre Dame wrote to Justice Scalia with a one-sentence recommendation: Amy Coney is the best student I ever had. That's pretty good. Justice Scalia hired her shortly thereafter, and we are honored to have his wonderful wife, Maureen. Where is Maureen? Maureen Scalia with us today. Thank you. And our great Secretary of Labor. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Very good genes in that family, I will say. Very good genes. Before joining the bench, Judge Barrett spent 15 years as a professor at the University of Notre Dame Law School. She was renowned for her scholarship, celebrated by her colleagues and beloved by her students. 3 times she was selected at Notre Dame Distinguished Professor of the Year. When I nominated Judge Barrett to serve on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 7th Circuit in 2017, every law clerk from her time at the Supreme Court endorsed her nomination, writing, quote, "We are Democrats, Republicans, and independents, yet we write to support the nomination of Professor Barrett to be a circuit judge. Professor Barrett is a woman of remarkable intellect and character. She is eminently qualified for the job. And I can tell you, I did that too. I looked and I studied, and you are very eminently qualified for this job. You are going to be fantastic. Thank you. Really fantastic. The entire Notre Dame law facility and faculty, everybody at that school also, we got so many letters, also wrote letters of support of Amy's nomination to the Seventh Circuit. They wrote, in effect, despite our differences, we unanimously agree that our constitutional system depends upon an independent judiciary staffed by talented people, devoted to the fair and impartial administration of the rule of law, and we unanimously agree that Amy is such a person. For the last 3 years, Judge Barrett has served with immense distinction on the federal bench. Amy is more than a stellar scholar and judge. She's also a profoundly devoted mother. Her family is a core part of who Amy is. She opened her home and her heart and adopted 2 beautiful children from Haiti. Her incredible bond with her youngest child, a son with Down syndrome, is a true inspiration. If confirmed, Justice Barrett will make history as the first mother of school-age children ever to serve on the U.S. Supreme Court. That's good. To her children, Emma, Vivian, Tess, John Peter, Liam, Juliet, and Benjamin, thank you for sharing your incredible mom with our country. Thank you very much. Amy Coney Barrett will decide cases based on the text of the Constitution as written. As Amy has said, being a judge takes courage. You are not there to decide cases as you may prefer. You are there to do your duty and to follow the law wherever it may take you. That is exactly what Judge Barrett will do on the U.S. Supreme Court. I want to thank the members of the Senate. We have so many of them here today. Thank you very much. I see you in the audience, and you're so proud. But I want to thank you for your commitment and to providing a fair and timely hearing. I know it will be that. Judge Barrett was confirmed to the Circuit Court 3 years ago by a bipartisan vote. Her qualifications are unsurpassed, and her record is beyond reproach. This should be a straightforward and prompt confirmation. Should be very easy. Good luck. It's going to be very quick. I'm sure it'll be extremely non-controversial. We said that the last time, didn't we? Well, thank you all very much, and thank you for being here. That's really great. Thank you. Thank you. I further urge all members of the other side of the aisle to provide Judge Barrett with the respectful and dignified hearing that she deserves, and frankly, that our country deserves. I urge lawmakers and members of the media to refrain from personal or partisan attacks, and the stakes for our country are incredibly high. Rulings that the Supreme Court will issue in the coming years will decide the survival of our Second Amendment, our religious liberty, our public safety, and so much more. To maintain security, liberty, and prosperity, we must preserve our priceless heritage of a nation of laws, and there is no one better to do that than Amy Coney Barrett. Law and order is the foundation of the American system of justice. No matter the issue, no matter the case before her, I am supremely confident that Judge Barrett will issue rulings based solely upon a fair reading of the law. She will defend the sacred principle of equal justice for citizens of every race, color, religion, and creed. Congratulations again to Judge Barrett. I know that you will make our country very, very proud. Please, Amy, say a few words. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I am deeply honored by the confidence that you have placed in me. And I am so grateful to you and the First Lady, to the Vice President and the Second Lady, and to so many others here for your kindness on this rather overwhelming occasion. I fully understand that this is a momentous decision for a president. And if the Senate does me the honor of confirming me, I pledge to discharge the responsibilities of this job to the very best of my ability. I love the United States, and I love the United States Constitution. I am truly humbled by the prospect of serving on the Supreme Court. Should I be confirmed, I will be mindful of who came before me. The flag of the United States is still flying at half-staff in memory of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg to mark the end of a great American life. Justice Ginsburg began her career at a time when women were not welcome in the legal profession. But she not only broke glass ceilings, she smashed them. For that, she has won the admiration of women across the country and indeed all over the world. Yes. She was a woman of enormous talent and consequence, and her life of public service serves as an example to us all. Particularly poignant to me was her long and deep friendship with Justice Antonin Scalia, my own mentor. Justices Scalia and Ginsburg disagreed fiercely in print without rancor in person. Their ability to maintain a warm and rich friendship, despite their differences, even inspired an opera. These two great Americans demonstrated that arguments, even about matters of great consequence, need not destroy affection. In both my personal and professional relationships, I strive to meet that standard. I was lucky enough to clerk for Justice Scalia, and given his incalculable influence on my life, I am very moved to have members of the Scalia family here today, including his dear wife, Maureen. I clerked for Justice Scalia more than 20 years ago, but the lessons I learned still resonate. His judicial philosophy is mine too. A judge must apply the law as written. Judges are not policymakers, and they must be resolute in setting aside any policy views they might hold. The president has asked me to become the 9th justice, and as it happens, I'm used to being in a group of 9, my family. Our family includes me, my husband Jesse, Emma, Vivian, Tess, John Peter, Liam, Juliet, and Benjamin. Vivian and John Peter, as the president said, were born in Haiti, and they came to us 5 years apart when they were very young. And the most revealing fact about Benjamin, our youngest, is that his brothers and sisters unreservedly identify him as their favorite sibling. Our children obviously make our life very full. While I am a judge, I'm better known back home as a room parent, carpool driver, and birthday party planner. When schools went remote last spring, I tried on another hat. Jesse and I became co-principals of the Barrett e-Learning Academy. And yes, the list of enrolled students was a very long one. Our children are my greatest joy, even though they deprive me of any reasonable amount of sleep. I couldn't manage this very full life without the unwavering support of my husband, Jesse. At the start of our marriage, I imagined that we would run our household as partners. As it has turned out, Jesse does far more than his share of the work. To my chagrin, I learned at dinner recently that my children consider him to be the better cook. For 21 years, Jesse has asked me every single morning what he can do for me that day. And though I almost always say nothing, he still finds ways to take things off my plate. And that's not because he has a lot of free time. he has a busy law practice. It's because he is a superb and generous husband, and I am very fortunate. Jesse and I have a life full of relationships, not only with our children, but with siblings, friends, and fearless babysitters, one of whom is with us today. I am particularly grateful to my parents, Mike and Linda Coney. I have spent the bulk of my adulthood as a Midwesterner, but I grew up in their New Orleans home. And as my brother and sisters can also attest, Mom and Dad's generosity extends not only to us, but to more people than any of us could count. They are an inspiration. It is important at a moment like this to acknowledge family and friends. But this evening, I also want to acknowledge you, my fellow Americans. The President has nominated me to serve on the United States Supreme Court, and that institution belongs to all of us. If confirmed, I would not assume that role for the sake of those in my own circle, and certainly not for my own sake. I would assume this role to serve you. I would discharge the judicial oath, which requires me to administer justice without respect to persons, do equal right to the poor and rich, and faithfully and impartially discharge my duties under the United States Constitution. I have no illusions that the road ahead of me will be easy, either for the short term or the long haul. I never imagined that I would find myself in this position. But now that I am, I assure you that I will meet the challenge with both humility and courage. Members of the United States Senate, I look forward to working with you during the confirmation process, and I will do my very best to demonstrate that I am worthy of your support. Thank you.
Come on up, family. Come on up, family. I want to acknowledge Attorney General Bill Barr. Bill, thank you very much for being here. Chief of Staff, thank you very much. Chief, you're doing a great job. And all of the senators, please, we really appreciate it. And I know you're going to have a busy couple of weeks, but I think it's going to be easier than you might think. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you all. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Congratulations, Amy.
You just heard it. President Trump and his nominee to the Supreme Court, now official, Amy Coney Barrett. This is the president's third nominee to the court and his first female nominee. In making the announcement, the president said that he expected her to receive a respectful and dignified hearing, and he told members of the Senate in attendance, good luck, as they are looking at an expedited confirmation timeline before the election. We also heard Amy Coney Barrett talk about her family. She is a mother to 7 children, including 2 that are adopted. And she also talked about her own parents and the example that they led for her. So I want to bring in now Nicole Killian, who's at the White House, to discuss this announcement. Nicole, we are hearing reports that the Senate Judiciary Committee could start a 4-day hearing for Judge Barrett on October 12th. You were right there at the announcement. What more can you tell us about the next steps in this process?
Well, you can expect the process to move quickly. CBS News has already confirmed that the White House has begun reaching out to Republican senators to try to set up meetings with Judge Barrett as early as next week. And then as of right now, the tentative schedule is that we expect opening statements to begin in the Judiciary Committee as early as October 12th. That would be followed by 2 days of questioning, and then that would be followed by another day that would allow witnesses to come before the committee. So we're talking mid-October for the start of these confirmation hearings. And of course, ideally, the president and Republicans would like to get her confirmed before the election, which would mean a vote potentially sometime before the end of October.
And on that front, Nicole, how important is it for the Trump campaign to get her confirmed before the election?
Well, certainly the president has indicated a desire for that to happen, although just last night at a rally, he said it didn't necessarily have to, but if it does, he feels like that would be a great victory, certainly for him and certainly for his supporters. But again, that is a timetable that they would like to hold to just in order to get someone on the court, get someone confirmed, because as you know, obviously, it's a process that only comes around every so often. So Republicans really feel like now is their time to get this done.
It is interesting to have heard the president talk about her nomination to the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals. He said at that time he heard from Democrats, Republicans, and independents writing in support of her remarkable intellect and that she was eminently qualified. And Nicole, you also spoke with both conservative and liberal groups ahead of the president's announcement. What did they tell you about their strategies concerning the nomination of Judge Barrett and the upcoming general election?
Well, that's right. I spoke with the head of the Susan B. Anthony list, which really has been one of the groups at the forefront of pushing for Judge Barrett. In fact, the president of the organization met with the president earlier this week and said she has been talking to him and Republican lawmakers about timing and trying to move this through. So for that organization in particular, they certainly see this as a big victory. This has certainly been an issue that they have been pushing as far as trying to get more conservative justices on the court. So this certainly falls in line with their goals and objectives. I did press the head of the organization in particular about whether or not this could potentially mean overturning landmark decisions like Roe v. Wade, if that's the ultimate goal here. And, the president of this organization certainly did not go there as far as whether or not that is their objective, but certainly suggested that they support, obviously, more restrictions when it comes to abortion in this country, and they're not sure what form that would take, but certainly they feel like Judge Barrett would be able to move the ball forward on some of those issues, and we know some of those issues are pending in legal challenges. And then, additionally, as far as liberal organizations, they are gearing up for a fight, and while they realize that this may get pushed through potentially before the election, they do feel that this is an opportunity to galvanize voters, Democratic voters, because so much is at stake, whether it's Roe v. Wade, whether it is the Affordable Care Act, which will come before the court right after the election, or the election itself, as far as whether or not there are any challenges. So from that standpoint, both sides really feel like this will galvanize their supporters. And so that for that reason, you can expect this will not only be a very intense fight, but a very expensive one, because both conservative and liberal groups will be pouring a lot of money into ads over the next couple of weeks, on both sides, obviously, over this nomination.
Very interesting, very high stakes. All right, Nicole Killian, thank you. Judge Amy Coney Barrett is now officially the president's nominee for the Supreme Court, and it could change the country's highest court for years to come. If approved, she would solidify the conservative majority on the court, potentially making it a 6-3 and putting many landmark decisions back in play. For more on this, I want to bring in Ilya Shapiro. He's the director of the Robert A. Levy Center for Constitutional Studies at the Cato Institute, and he's also the author of Supreme Disorder. Ilya, it's great to have you with us. So how significant is this pick?
It's a big deal. Anytime the court shifts significantly from one jurisprudential philosophy to another, there's a lot of focus on that. For example, Clarence Thomas replaced Thurgood Marshall, a very liberal to a very conservative. This is a similar kind of shift. And of course, the timing coming 6 weeks before the election is also big. Amy Coney Barrett is widely respected, universally respected for both her legal acumen, her teaching, her thoughtfulness, her grace, and you saw a bit of that in this announcement. So both in terms of her as a potentially very strong, long-time justice, if she's confirmed, she's 48, could serve on the court for a long time, and the seriousness of purpose with which she has approached both her academic writings and now for 3 years her judicial writings means that she will be a force on the court and, as you've been discussing, would mean that the middle of the court is no longer Chief Justice John Roberts, but depending on the issue, maybe Brett Kavanaugh, maybe Neil Gorsuch, maybe she herself, and that would really be a different dynamic.
I have heard from so many people who know her that have discussed her intellect and her character, but she is also known for her conservative views, her anti-abortion personal position. Would her confirmation potentially mean that Roe versus Wade could be overturned, or that in some other areas access to abortions might be limited?
Well, Roe and Casey, Planned Parenthood versus Casey, of course, is the governing law about abortion, the 1992 case. I don't know if there's more than 1 or 2 votes on the court to overturn them altogether. What we could see in this area is that regulations and restrictions which otherwise have been invalidated, including this past term, a case out of Louisiana where John Roberts cast the deciding vote to overturn a regulation, those on the margins would be upheld. So there would be more wiggle room for restrictions and kind of more of a federal system, so different states could have put in different policies. But of course, recall, even if there were eventually, years down the road, enough votes to overturn Roe versus Wade, that would just turn that decision back to the states.
Well, the court is scheduled to hear arguments over the Affordable Care Act a week after Election Day. I know that in 2017, Judge Barrett criticized Chief Justice Roberts on his decision that ended up preserving Obamacare. How might her being confirmed on the bench affect the Affordable Care Act?
Well, to be clear, I myself have written plenty criticizing John Roberts' opinion in that case, but this is a different case this time around than what we faced 8 years ago. In the intervening years, Congress zeroed out the penalty, tax, whatever you want to call it, that one had to pay for not purchasing complying insurance, and therefore, presumably now, Chief Justice Roberts' saving construction is no longer applicable. But the real question is how much of the rest of the law has to fall. And since when Congress changed or zeroed out that tax penalty, it didn't change any of the rest of the law. It's a tougher row to hoe, a tougher argument to make. This idea of what lawyers call severability, how much of the law is severable from the unconstitutional, presumably now, mandate. And there's a big dispute over that. I find it hard to believe that the entirety of the ACA of Obamacare would fall, but certain related provisions may be in jeopardy, at least with respect to the private market. You could still have exchanges, state exchanges or federal exchanges, where the regulations apply. But it's an interesting debate, and it's not even clear whether Amy Coney Barrett, if confirmed, would be the 5th vote to do that. I think the court will strive to have a closer, a narrower vote with more justices. And on severability on this issue, it's not clear that this is a left versus right clean split.
And I think you make a very fair point that there's going to be a lot of things that are not necessarily a very clear right versus left decision. So what other issues are you watching that could come into play if Barrett is confirmed as a justice?
Well, affirmative action or the use of racial preferences in education admissions or employment. Already with Brett Kavanaugh replacing Anthony Kennedy, one would expect there to be 5 votes to cut back or eliminate the ability of governments to use race. As John Roberts himself, no swing vote on this issue, has written, the way to stop racial discrimination is to stop discriminating based on race. And while Judge Barrett doesn't have a record, either academic or judicial, in this area, you would think that whether it's the Harvard case that's currently pending before the First Circuit or other circumstances, that the affirmative action jurisprudence would change. But religious liberty, administrative law, how much deference to give to government agencies, anything that you think about in the last number of years has come down 5 to 4, whether in a more liberal or in a more conservative direction, that does have the potential to shift. And with John Roberts no longer being the median vote, perhaps he no longer has to think about his strategery, as you could say, in terms of thinking not about what law to apply, but how to position the court and make it seem less partisan or more legitimate in his views, if indeed that's what he's been doing tactically. So as Justice White used to say, every justice makes for a new court, and that's not simply a matter of the vote count. It's also their internal dynamics, who can convince others more, who can be a strong intellectual voice in different areas of law. And I think Judge Barrett is poised, if she becomes justice, to become an intellectual leader on the court, not just one more vote in a particular direction.
Ilya, you wrote the book, Supreme Disorder, talking about how the way that we confirm justices has completely changed in this country. And Amy Coney Barrett actually spoke to CBSN here in an interview in 2016 following the death of Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia. I want to play for our viewers what she had to say about the question of replacing justices during an election year.
Kennedy is a moderate Republican, and he replaced a moderate Republican, Powell. We're talking about Justice Scalia, the staunchest conservative on the court, and we're talking about him being replaced by someone who could dramatically flip the balance of power on the court. It's not a lateral move. And finally, the reality is we live in a different time. Confirmation hearings have gotten far more contentious. And so I just don't think we live in the same kind of time. So I think in sum, the president has the power to nominate, and the Senate has the power to act or not, and I don't think either one of them can claim that there's a rule governing one way or the other.
Those comments are so interesting now, and in many ways echoing much of what you said in terms of changing the balance of power on the court. I'm wondering, Ilya, if you could tell us a little bit more about how those comments ring to you now and what type of confirmation battles lie ahead for her.
Well, I think she's right, Lana. As you heard, she said that the president has the power to nominate and the Senate has the power to act or not. I mean, it turns out, as I found out in writing this book, Supreme Disorder, Judicial Nominations, and the Politics of America's Highest Court, politics has been part of the process from the very beginning. George Washington had a nominee rejected. About half the presidents have had trouble filling seats of one kind or another. The biggest statistical tell is whether the president's party also controls the Senate. During times of united government, nominees are confirmed at about a 90% rate. When it's divided party control, it's under 60%. And that difference is accentuated even more for vacancies arising during presidential election years. That's happened 29 times. This is the 30th. When during united government, 17 of the 19 times someone has been confirmed. During the divided government in those presidential election years, only 1 of 10. Again, so this is not any sort of rule, but that's just the bare politics of the matter. And it's about counting votes. It doesn't mean that so close to an election, Mitch McConnell is absolutely right to do what he's doing, or that he's was absolutely wrong to do what he was doing 4 years ago. It's just a matter of this is a political process. And presidents and senates are elected in part based on the kinds of justices that they intend to nominate and confirm or reject.
It definitely is a political process, but it is interesting hearing some of those ideological arguments that were being used to justify blocking Supreme Court nominee Supreme Court nominee Merrick Garland at the time, now being cast aside in favor of the brutal truth, which is this is political. President Trump has had 3 nominees in less than 4 years. Can you talk to us about how impactful it is and how this compares with other presidents?
Yeah, I mean, I think a president has few powers, certainly in the domestic sphere, more important than appointing justices. These people go on to serve for decades, long after the president who appointed them has departed the White House, serving as a bridge of that, or an extension of that legal policy agenda. Justice Scalia served nearly 30 years as President Reagan's bridge to the 21st century. And that goes as much or more for the lower courts, which decide 50 or 60,000 cases a year, even as the Supreme Court decides fewer and fewer. So I would argue that this, not just the Supreme Court, although this third nomination is certainly part of that, but the lower court success that he's had confirming nominees is probably the administration's biggest success. The circuit judges, the level just below the Supreme Court, he's had confirmed more than anyone other than Jimmy Carter, who did not have any Supreme Court vacancies. And as a consolation, the Congress expanded, created new judgeships for him to fill. But yeah, so that's an example. We've had presidents that haven't had an opportunity to appoint any. On the other hand, William Howard Taft had 5 nominees in a little over a year and a half. So 3 in one term is a big deal. Eventually, it evens out. For perhaps in a 2-term presidency, if President Trump is reelected, he might not get any more. But this impact is significant, and whether lower court or especially the Supreme Court, the federal judiciary is powerful and is different than a tax reform bill or other legislation that can be repealed, or guidance that's not worth the paper it's written on.
Yeah. One last question, Ilya, before I let you go. President Trump has said that it is important that the new justice is confirmed before the election because of the possibility of election challenges ending up in the Supreme Court. Is that self-interested? And fundamentally, what would happen if the court splits 4-4 on election issues?
Well, I wish you wouldn't put it that way, because it puts Judge Barrett in an awkward position, regardless of how she would eventually rule.
Well, sorry, Ilya, I would say that the president, sorry, Ilya, I respectfully praise the character and intellect of the nominee, but the president is the one who has phrased it that way. It was President Trump.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying it's
right.
Unfortunate that he said that. I wasn't saying that you said it that way. You were quoting him.
Okay.
And I'm saying it's unfortunate that he put it that way. It puts Judge Barrett in that awkward position. But it is very possible. I mean, it's possible that already there are appeals from some state court decisions that are the Republican Party is asking the court to decide even before the election. But there could be challenges from key swing states if it comes down to 1 or 2 of those Midwestern states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, whose electoral votes are in play, and there's some big challenge that could get to the court. If it's 4-4, that's no constitutional crisis. It simply means that the decision of the court below stands. So from Pennsylvania, for example, that's the Third Circuit. Would the loser of that kind of a decision see that as less legitimate than, say, losing 5-4 before the Supreme Court? I don't know, but certainly we do have the legal process in place. It's not a matter of that this goes somehow into empty air and nobody makes that decision.
It is going to be very interesting ahead of us, and I appreciate, Ilya Shapiro, you coming on to discuss it. Thank you.
My pleasure, Lana.
We're going to take a quick break now, but we'll have more analysis on the Supreme Court nominee and President Trump's decision. You're streaming CBSN. CBS News, always on.
Go to the ends of the earth.
Right now.
We got something crazy.
And reach for the stars.
Here we are.
Time.
Yes, it's my comeback.
Hey, this is pretty fun.
But wait, there's more.
Experience thought-provoking.
I'm open to the idea of being a human